Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our June 2nd council meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Here.
Mr. Menegini?
Here.
Dr. Hayes?
Here.
Mr. Gottstein?
Here.
Mr. Ball?
Here.
Need approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of May 19th, special meeting of May 20th, special meeting of May 22nd, special meeting of May 27th. The special meetings of May 20th, 22nd, and 27th were budget discussions that the council had. They were posted meetings. We had no audience in attendance, no public in attendance, but they were posted, and that's what they were.
I make a motion we approve the regular meeting minutes for May 19th and the special meetings of May 20th, 22nd, and the 27th.
Support.
Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes. Approval of manifest 2014-11 in the amount of $535,721.13. George.
I basically only got one question now, Jeremy, and I noticed it's on a number of columns. Consolation Trust Company. I just picked this one out of Electrical Utility Fund, Joe, but I see it's on a number of columns.
The OPEB.
OPEB, that's our annual contribution to OPEB. OPEB stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits. Like we're funding for the future retirees for like healthcare and stuff that we have contracted out. It's just an annual contribution.
Okay, I just see it on a number of them, Mary, and I didn't know what it was. That's all I have, Jeremy.
Okay, Chris.
No questions.
Dr. Hayes.
No questions.
Lee.
I got a couple little items here. I'm assuming I see it's split up in three categories here, the traffic cones. So it'd come up to almost $600 for the 30 cones. Is that correct?
That's correct. They're
Have-
about $24 a piece.
I know we've had a lot of issues, but some of these disappear perchance? Or we've never had that many
Well, we put a lot.
holes where we had to put out there? Let's put it that way.
No, we had put them out a lot over the winter, and some did go away. So we had to replace them.
Okay, and then under refuse collection, this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rubbish hauling fees, is that from the containers down by the city garage? Okay, I see that's really starting to add up big time. And on page 6, under Gulf, Reinders Inc., Soil Conditioner, Ball Fields - Little League REI. Are we going to get reimbursed from the Little League a little bit for that, or what's that REI stand for? Looks like it might be short version for reimbursement
We do get a reimbursement from Little League.
from the ball fields, I should say, the organization. Okay.
Right, well, there's there's an agreement between Parks and Rec and Little League. We can pay for typical maintenance activities, but if it's baseball specific, then
They kick in.
the league
Okay.
pays.
And one other thing, maybe I had talked about this before. Under electric, page 5, this 46-inch high-def wall mount utility department TV. Where's
Yeah.
that one going?
That's in the front office area for webinar meetings. It's a smart TV, hooks to the computer. So when we do
Okay,
OSHA safety compliance.
I remember you had mentioned that a while back. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, the TV was my only question, so with that, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion, we approve manifest 2014-11 in the amount of $535,721.13.
Support.
Motion made by Chris, supported by George. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Does anyone from the audience wish to address the council on the minutes manifest or any agenda item? If you do, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. You'll have 5 minutes. There'll be a further time for any comment on any subject at the end of the meeting. Okay. Before we go into our regular meeting this evening, we'll be entering into two different public hearings. The first one is for the 2014-15 through 2018-19 multiple year operating and capital improvements budget. The second one will be for the Police Department, U.S. Department of Agriculture Rural Development application for a squad car. I need a motion to go into public hearing for the budget.
Make a motion to go into public hearing concerning the budget.
Support.
Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yep.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the mayor mentioned, we sat through 5 budget workshops and went through each fund individually. There are 13 funds within the city. The general fund, major and local street funds, the downtown development authority, museum fund, fire fund. We separated fire out of the general fund a few years back, if you remember, from requests from the auditor. And we have a debt service fund, cable television, electric utility, golf, wastewater, water, and capital. Of those 5 funds, the electric fund is the largest fund by both revenue and expense at about 35% of total revenue, total expense, about $4.5 million. The general fund is second, about 18.5%, 19%. Revenues at 2.5 and expense at 2.5 million. The other funds are smaller. Next largest fund would be the cable television. It's 11%, and the other funds are below 10%. As we went through our discussions, as you remember, the general fund always has takes some of the most effort. That is, of course, that's the fund where your tax dollars go into, and we also, because it's closely tied to the major and local street funds, where all of our road work is performed. Our both major and local streets are basically operated off of the Act 51 revenues, and any shortfalls within the fund come from the general fund, general taxing. I've looked at the major and local street funds over the last number of years, and we have historically spent on general operations about 107% of that fund, and that has been a structural issue across the state. We have had numerous discussions with Lansing about not so much on the Act 51 formula, because everybody's pretty much in the same boat, so it's really a funding issue, and they've been trying to address that. I know that just recently there are two or three different proposals, one coming through the House and one coming through the Senate, and then obviously the governor has his own proposal, but one of those proposals will likely come out of the legislature and into the governor's office for signature. We're anticipating some kind of an increase on the overall fund availability, but of course in an election year it's difficult because that does have to have some sort of a taxing consequence at the pump. So they're wrestling with that issue right now. I don't believe that the House might have sent theirs out, but the Senate, I think they're still wrestling with their proposal. With the other funds, of course, we balanced all of the funds this year, as we do every year. It is a mandated requirement, and we looked at the funds from top to bottom on all 13 funds. In the electric fund, there are some rate increase proposals that were put forward. We do have a 2% rate increase scheduled for electric. We looked at the internet, the cable fund, which includes the television, internet, and phone. Both the television, we addressed the television issue last year on the rates, and the phone rates we felt were now adequately established, but the internet rate we felt was under market low, and we needed to address some revenue issue in that fund. So there is a program $7 per month increase on the internet. In the wastewater and the water together, we have a major project coming up in the next couple years, so we're going to have to address the rates to handle the project. On the wastewater side, we actually have that in 2 phases, as we communicated in a number of different meetings. The first phase is a wastewater plant project, which is a major upgrade to the plant, at about $5.5 million. On the phase 2 is a collection, wastewater collection project. That project is scheduled at about $2.8 million. About 45% of that is going to be in a grant. The rest is in loan through rural development. On the water side, it's another $2.8 million. And the water and the sewer collection and distribution are scheduled to be in the same, we picked the streets that, coincidentally, the streets that need the most work happen to also have the water and sewer. So, you know, we're planning on those projects coming up here within a year or two, between either 2015 or 2016. In the wastewater, we're going to add $5 per month on the ready-to-serve fee and a $1 per thousand on the commodity charge. And in the water, it will be an increase of 50 cents per thousand on the commodity. That takes care of any of our rate questions. All other rates and fees will remain the same.
It was a 75 cent per thousand on the water.
What, did we go up to 75?
Yes.
Okay. And then on the last fund, which we always struggle with every year, is the golf fund. That's something that we nurse along year to year. We think that in a couple of years, with the debt being expended for the clubhouse and with some other structural advantages over the next couple of years, we'll be able to make some positive change within that fund. I can open it up for questions. I mean, we've been through a number of times. So, my report.
Okay, well, for the public, I want to kind of go through with the increases on what our average consumer will see. Yours will vary based on your usage and what services you have. But with the electric, it was a 2% rate increase. Using the average of 800 kilowatts, which is most of the homes, that's going to be about a $2 increase per month. Last meeting, we adjusted the PCAC, which is the discount you get if our purchase power cost is low. We adjusted the floor on it, where before it could take the rate 2.5 cents below published to 1.5 cents. For your average consumer on the 800 kilowatts, that's a $12 rate increase. That will be seen with the bills that are coming out for the May utilities. It'll be seen in June's bill. The sales tax on that, they said 56 cents, so that's the internet. As Ray said, the internet across the board will be going up $7 per month. That's the silver, the gold, the platinums, all the packages are going up $7 per month. Wastewater, like he said, $5 increase on the meter charge and $1 on the usage. With an average usage of 4,000 gallons, that's a $9 per month increase. With the water, 75 cents per thousand, again on a 4,000 gallon average usage, that's $3. That comes out to a total of $33.56 average consumer rate increase that they'll see. Most, like I said, the PCAC one will be immediate. The others you will not see till your July utilities or your August bills.
Jeremy, can you break that down a little bit further? What did we, say like on our base rate, what did we pay before, and then what is it jumping up to? Like on sewer?
Oh, sure.
I think it'll make it a lot easier.
Okay, I can do that. We'll start, the top one, internet. Where internet was 32, it'll go to 39 for the basic, the silver package. For your wastewater, the meter charge was $15 a month. It's going up to $20 a month. The commodity charge, your usage, was $6.75 per thousand. It's going to $7.75 per thousand. So that one's easy to figure out. If your average is 2,000, it'll go up $2. If it's 5,000, it'll go up $5. For water, the commodity charge, we're not doing anything with the meter charge right now. That may be coming in the future when we're looking at the project, but we don't need to do that till the project's bid, which won't be till next year. So we're only raising the commodity charge right now from $3.50 per thousand to $4.25 per thousand.
With the internet increase, are we also increasing the speeds?
We looked at that in talking with Jim and Ralph and Packerland. We don't have the capability to add the 30 and the 100 packages as it sits right now. So we will not
We
be.
were talking about upping the
Well,
speeds per package.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, the
5,
5,
10,
10.
and 15.
Okay.
Yes.
So as Chris said, with the internet, you do have the $7 increase, but the speeds for everybody are going up. Right now, it's what, 3, 6, and 10?
That's correct.
The 3 meg package, which is our silver, will be going to 5. The gold, which is 5, will be going to 10. And the platinum, which is 10, will be going to 15. So you are getting increased speed for the increased cost.
Excuse me, Ray, would you care to explain on the water and the wastewater, why the rates have to go up so we qualify for that loan?
Well, on the way that they've evaluated, and I'd say they, that's USDA Rural Development, who we go through for our funding source. They take a look at our average rate, and they base it off of, is it 1.5? I think it's 1.5, the median household income. And then if the rate to handle the project is above that, then you qualify for the grant. So you basically take your project amount and your operating expense, you know, run it through your budget, and it establishes what kind of revenue you need in order to handle the budget and your operating. And you know, when we apply an application, if our rate is above that amount, then we qualify for the grant. That's how it come on wastewater side. We received grant amounts. And on the water side, we were below that threshold, so we didn't qualify. There's also some factors that are involved from the DEQ, where if we have you know, certain factors, requirements for the system, we could get into what they call a poverty rate, which poverty rate for the loan is 2.5%, and we run the loans at 40 years. The intermediate rate is 3.25. I think it's 3.25, isn't it, Bruce? Yeah, 3.25. So, you know, there's two different evaluations when we go through.
And one other thing, well, to start with, we had 5 meetings, and there was nobody here at any of the meetings except for Mr. Hawkinson. He showed up at one. And I really would have liked to have seen more interest from the public, but now I'm sure we're going to get the interest because almost all these rates have gone up. But in the same token, everybody in the system gets their bill and say, holy man, it's $30 higher. But that's electric, that's the whole works. They don't think nothing about paying 18 cents a kilowatt versus 12, which We Energy is paying. And they don't include that in their bill. Like, you know, it's just water and sewer, and if they're in the township, they get the special deal. Well, anyway, all at one time, it seems like a lot, where if you get all your separate bills, your internet bill, your phone bill outside of the city system, you total all that up and see where you're sitting compared to the city. Believe me, you're in better shape right here. And I would really like to thank the staff for all the time and effort that they put into this. I guess that's all I have on that.
Jeremy or Ray or whoever, is on these bills, is this a one-time shot over the length of what? Or is it next year we're gonna have to reevaluate all this stuff and raise accordingly again?
Well, I think every year you have to evaluate your revenue and your rate structure based on just standard increases in operations. But a couple of these, like I know on the internet, you know, we haven't raised our internet fee 7, 8 years.
Ray, excuse me, just mainly for your sewer, that sewer project, and I mean, is this, we know what the cost of the sewer project now, is this figured in to the rate structure, and this is gonna, should take us for 10 years?
No, I would never say rate takes you 10 years. We do have that second phase, so as we talked about in the budget hearing, that this particular rate increase covers an incremental step to getting to the final
That's my point.
increase.
For over how many years?
Well, you have to, within the next 16 months, you have to get to that final rate for the project. So there's going to be an additional increase to get to that final stage.
This was the
Any
big jump.
ideas of how much?
I think we're talking about another $1.
Yeah, this was the
$1 to
big
$2.
jump. This was the big
Yeah,
jump to get us
total.
most of the way there.
That's my point. I mean,
Right.
so that the public understands, it's now another year, we got another project coming up here, we're gonna
Well, you're
go
not
sky
gonna-
high again, I mean, we're gonna get nothing but flack over this.
Yeah, we evaluated that, George, because in order, part of the requirement under the funding for the project is that your rate to handle the project has to be established at the time that you bid the project. Our estimate for bidding the project, phase 1 was either late this fall into the winter, and then for phase 2, we talked about possibly in the spring, late spring. That would allow us to hopefully start road projects in 2015. If we were, for whatever reason, in the bidding process, that has to be delayed. I mean, that additional rate increase could be delayed until such time as we have to do a bid. So it could be July 1st of next year.
Well,
But we made the
my
big jump
point
on
was,
this one.
in a year or two, are we just gonna pile on another $5-10 again?
No,
Which
that-
would be,
No,
I mean, we'd all get crucified for it, and you know that, I mean,
this rate increase is a jump because we could be coming up to bidding here within the next 3 months. And so we need to get the rate established for that first project.
But yeah, like I said, this is the big jump. There will be a smaller one, but a lot smaller than this, especially the sewer.
so we've gotta make sure that point is made clear.
Water might see, when we get to bid that project, water will see a little bit bigger jump, because that's when we're gonna be looking at doing more of the water work,
Like how much, any idea?
4 to 5, about 4, probably. That's the ballpark number I'm hearing right now, is about 4 more to take us to 7. 7 overall increase of the 3 now and 4 later.
Are we gonna have a notification in the next billing with the rate increases?
We just discussed that today.
Okay.
Putting a flyer in with the next one, showing those average household.
And we can start getting information out, internet and stuff, not now, and having the bill.
Like Mary said, I think including this, what we received, this average household increase, including that in there, might be a good thing.
And it'll be also focused on the internet, that we're also increasing speeds, so that people understand that they're getting something for the increase as well.
Jeremy, are we gonna have discussion more on this later, or,
The rates and that,
well, everything in,
Well-
basically the budget?
yeah, it's coming up later for approval.
Okay, but is that open for discussion?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Any other, Dr. Hayes?
One of the big thing on our budget is the transfers in running the city hall and the general fund. I assume that those transfers in are all related to the utilities that we operate. And my question is the same as it was last year. Are the utilities paying their fair share towards the operation of the city hall?
Yeah, we base it off a calculation that we actually work with the auditor on. So it's based off a percentage of revenue. So they're paying their fair share.
Well, I was talking about basis of work that is being done by the staff in the city hall and the space that's taken up and everything that goes to running the city hall, the utilities. Are there an actual, do the utilities pay their fair share as far as running of the city?
Well, we think they do, Doc. That's, again, that's something that, we worked with our auditor over a number of years to make sure that that's a fair and equitable
Okay.
rate
And
and
that's what you
calculation.
said last year, and I just want to make sure
Yeah.
that that's still the case.
Yeah. We use the same formula that we've used for years.
Are you done, Doc?
Yes.
Based off that topic, Ray, what changes have been made, that was one of my questions, on basically on the staff? Are you going to mention any on that, or?
Well, we've made some changes based on full-time to part-time. In the office, we have a part-time replacement for retirement. Same as down in the DPW, especially with our garbage collection. You know, we basically have people assigned to that job, which is 3 days a week. So we've contracted to some extent on a full-time job force. We have to constantly evaluate that based on workloads, consistent workloads. I know we've had a tough spring. We talked about that during budget hearings from a staffing level, but we have to find out if that's going to be a trend, if it's a long-term type of scenario. Electric department was the same way. Do we have the work out there for long-term? And then, you have to, if we establish a higher payroll, then we obviously have to set up our revenues to account for that.
Well, is there going to be a full-time job going back into the office here?
No,
Or
what
is
we
that
did
going to
was
stay both part-time?
that's going to stay part-time. Based on, again, through our budget hearings, we evaluated it both ways, evaluated the workload and the hours, and at this time, we're going to stay status quo.
Because on going back to the street department, which was one of my arguments on these potholes and everything, I'm sure Joe and everybody else evaluated what, you got 3 people over there, and I'm assuming, and I'm quite positive that they all got full vacation, full amount of vacation, all 3 of them.
As much as they're owed by the amount of years that they've been here, yes, but
How many weeks is that total, Joe?
I've never added it all up between the 4 people that are over there, but, you've got a couple 23-plus year employees, so, they're in that 4-week range. And then you got some shorter ones there that all have 2 to 3 weeks, so 4, 8, 12,
I mean, your
15,
3 main
16.
employees.
About 20 weeks or so,
Yeah, right.
it's possible that if it was timed right, yeah, it
And you
never
look at
is,
the
but you're gonna be without somebody all summer long.
You look at the situation right now, you're gonna be working the rest of the summer with 2-man crew. Which is my point from day one, is we got to get more people in there. What are you gonna do with 2 men?
Well, I know that's why we advertised we took applications for 2 part-time for the summer, whose initial primary duties are gonna be potholes. After that, once the potholes are taken care of, depending on how long they intended to work them, there'll be other work for them.
Well, I'm anxious to see the list of what wasn't done this past winter and what we're gonna miss this summer with the amount of people that we got.
Well, I know one of the things that we weren't able to do, we do have coming up on the agenda is number 9, is the tree removal.
Right.
That's probably the biggest one. As far as everybody's concerned, including all the staff, is getting after these roads and trying to get those fixed up the best we can till the projects start. And today was a day that I had some summer help come in. We started fixing potholes today, and we were up on 2nd Avenue and fixed a few of those. We're gonna do some more of those tomorrow and work our way through this whole process and try to keep 2 people on them all summer long with the staff that we have in a part-time, seasonal type position.
The batch plants are now open, so we can get the
Yeah.
mix? Okay. I know they just recently opened.
Yeah, we did a super patch this morning in front of Danielson's greenhouse and took a good portion of those right when you turn in, but now we gotta go up the road a little bit more and do some more, so. And
Chris, anything? George, anything else?
No, I guess I'm pretty much.
Lee? Dr. Hayes?
No further questions.
Anyone from the public have any questions or comments they'd like to make on the budget? Staff? Anything else from any of the staff? Ray?
No, we're not approving the budget tonight. We do have our rate ordinance or rate resolution, and our non-union, basically our non-union pay resolution, which includes anybody who's not in a union contract, from a rate establishment standpoint, and we've now done that the last couple of years, because if there's a disagreement on passing those, whether it's utility rates or personnel costs, it's real hard to pass the budget if we don't have, we don't transfer some of that through, so at the next meeting, we'll have the General Appropriations Act and the budget on.
Are there any other comments? Are there any further comments? Are there any further comments? Hearing none, I need a motion to close public hearing on the budget and open public hearing on the police car.
I'll make a motion, we close the public hearing and go back to regular session.
We're not going back to regular session.
No,
We're going into public hearing on the police car.
okay, sorry, okay. I'll make a motion, we go into public hearing on the police car then.
Support.
Motion made by Lee, supported by Dr. Hayes. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yep.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Okay, this public hearing is for the U.S. Department of Agricultural Rural Development grant application that we put in for our new police squad car. We got a letter saying that we had been approved for $15,000 from rural development to help offset the cost of purchasing a new car and equipment. Right now, the total cost for the new car is going to be $25,400, which includes shipping to get it to Iron Mountain.
Does not include the shipping.
Does not include the shipping.
Does not include shipping.
Okay.
$150 for shipping of the car.
New equipment on the car of $14,200, for a total car and equipment of $39,600. The grant application for the car and equipment, we have $39,300. Grant is 38% of $15,000, and then our portion will be $24,600. Jim, would you like to go into any more detail, add anything?
The new equipment, a lot of it is because of the fact that the equipment that is in the Crown Vic is very old. It is from the Impala, when we had the Impala on the road. And we have to replace some of the stuff because it just will not, it's not usable anymore.
Right.
And so that's where a lot of the cost is actually coming from.
Some of the new equipment that we're including in this, besides the basic police package for the car, would be a new LED light bar, a new in-car camera, a new radar unit, the divider cage, the rear plastic seat, a front push bumper, and then there's other equipment, other smaller equipment pieces that are also included in that. But those are the big ticket items of the equipment.
And this is the four-wheel drive version?
We're looking at an all-wheel drive Dodge Charger,
The V6 or the V8?
V8. They don't offer the all-wheel drive and a police package in the V6.
Is that the same car that they got in Marquette? Or is that a test car?
It's Marquette County doesn't run Dodge, but they are trying out one of the all-wheel drive cars. It's the exact same car we would be getting.
That you're getting?
Yeah.
You couldn't get a deal like they did?
We already run Dodges, so they won't give us the deal.
I know we got a good deal on the all-wheel drive as opposed to the two-wheel. We did get a deal on that because there had been some ordering issues that led to there being excess.
They're only charging us $1,500 more for the all-wheel drive option, as opposed to a two-wheel drive.
And for that, I felt it was...
I mean, not questioning anything, Jim, but if you check, how are they on trouble-free? You know, I pretty much.
I did some phone
Or
calls.
is this something new that?
I did some phone calls down to the test track in Lansing. Michigan State Police test all their vehicles down there in Lansing. They have a crew that basically they beat cars up all day. And they had a civilian model of the Dodge Charger with the all-wheel drive, and they couldn't break it, is what they were told. That's what I was told by them. They would like to see every cop car basically be that way now.
Good.
Was there a big difference on the fuel economy between the two-wheel and the four-wheel?
It's two-wheel until four-wheel is needed,
It is, okay.
so there's no,
It's not all the time.
it's not all the time.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
What do we plan on doing with the Crown Vic, do you know?
I was told it'll probably become a pool car.
Is that good enough for that?
Yeah, I think it's in, talking with the chief, it's in better shape than the Impala. so
That
he's
was
more
my next
comfortable.
question, what's gonna happen to that?
I think that car can either be auctioned or, I think it'd be auctioned off. Yeah. What's gonna happen now, and with the Chargers, from what we understand, is that the resale value of them after 4 years
Is a lot more than you would have any other way.
It's a lot more.
Yeah.
And so you actually don't roll those into the pool, you sell them.
Right, you can sell them out on the open market, you make money with them, as opposed to turning them into pool cars.
The one we have now, that wasn't four-wheel, was it?
No, it's two-wheel, rear wheel.
And that's 2 years old, isn't it?
2012 is when we purchased it.
Okay, do we still have the Ford,
Expedition, yes, we do. It has 93,000 miles on it now.
that's staying in service?
It's staying in service. We will use the Charger. It'll get around great in about up to 4 or 5 inches of snow, is what I've been told. After that, it drags body, because it's only about 6 inches off the ground. So you have to have something like the SUV around for when we get that foot,
Okay, well, so basically, we're gonna end up with 3 cars in service?
the 3 cars. And then the SUV will get driven when it'll get driven sparingly, you know, when it's bad enough.
No, don't they like the SUV if they have to respond somewhere for like the SWAT things and carry the equipment easier? Not SWAT, but you know what the emergency response team.
There's uses it has, yes. I mean, it can get used for that because it carries a lot of equipment. But it's not the best of an all-around, everyday patrol unit.
Right.
And that's what we want to keep it around because it does have uses still to us. You know, living where we live in a rural area. You know, if we have to get in somewhere, we still can with it.
Yeah.
And we have the 3 now, because we're running the Crown Vic, the Charger, and the SUV right now.
Is this item in the budget, Ray?
Yes, this is a budgeted item.
And we would be replacing the Crown Vic, which has 200,000 miles on it.
Chris? George, anything else?
No?
Dr. Hayes?
No question?
Lee?
Nope.
Anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Does the public have any questions on?
It's like 6 years.
And Ray, anything?
No, I don't have anything.
Are there any further questions or comments? Are there any further questions or comments? Are there any further questions or comments?
Make a motion, we go back into regular session?
Second.
Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yep.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Okay, going into our communications this evening, we have 9 things on the agenda. The first one we have is the approval of the police department squad car purchase. We've just discussed this in the public hearing. If there's any other questions or comments, we can take them now. Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion that we purchase the 2014 Dodge Charger through the State of Michigan Deal Program with the necessary additional equipment for a price not to exceed $39,750.
Second.
Motion made by Lee, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Ball?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
I have one question on that then. We're not gonna wait and get a 2015?
Jim Cash.
The reason we're kind of under a constraint of time also with this, because there's going to be a body change with the 2015 and interior change. What that means, being on the phone a lot with the Dodge people and the state police, the testing track, when they change it, there's a lag time for all the other equipment to catch up. The companies don't manufacture stuff to fit in it for about 3 months after they got the model out there. So if we got the car now, you wouldn't see it probably on the road till April. Where if we buy the 2014, which they have all the parts for now, already made, it'll be on the road hopefully within a month.
Okay. Next on the agenda, we have the contract tree removal. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we discussed during public hearing on the budget, one of the activities that we normally handle during the winter is boulevard tree removal. With the amount of work that we've had to do this winter, we weren't able to get at the tree removal. It's basically dealing with a number of plowing activities along with the water freeze activities that we've had, water line freeze activities. So during budget hearing, we talked about contracting this activity out. I know Joe has worked on securing these quotes. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to him. He can explain the different quotes that are in your report.
Is there any specific questions regarding these? I figured I'd just do it that way if there's some concerns.
And the recommendation is go with Asplund, because they're gonna give us the chips and the lumber. How much are we expecting to make on that as opposed to having it through MRVs? I mean, is there a $3,000 difference? Are we gonna make more?
Probably the biggest reason that I would think that you'd want to stick with Aspen is because of the timely fashion that they're going to come and get them out, more so than the money end of it. When I spoke to Merv's Tree Service, he was in the middle of, he's also a farmer, so he was planting, and he said it'd have to wait till that is all done, and then he had some other jobs ahead of us, so he said, well, maybe the end of June, first part of July, I can get to it. Aspen, on the other hand, that's what just they do, They'll be here probably within a week and a half to 2 weeks after I make the phone call, if they're successful with the bid.
Chris, I had the same argument as what you did. And if you spend all the time and figure all these out, I mean, knowing what the price of firewood is gonna go through this year, this is by far the best way to go. I mean, not that I'm sticking for Joe, but I kind of figured out, knowing what prices of firewood are gonna go on, and what we can do with this, what we can possibly make out of selling it the way we're going.
I was gonna talk to, George, I was gonna talk to Rob to kind of get a feel for a full cord of hard maple, what that would go for. I really don't know. I didn't get a chance to talk to him.
I'll be very truthful with the council.
Yeah.
The prices that you got on here, if you describe it at $125, that's most likely the price that what it's gonna sell for.
Okay.
But now you gotta figure how you're gonna get it there. Or are you gonna cut it up and get it there?
I wasn't planning on cutting it up.
Okay, how are you gonna load it and unload it?
Aspen is gonna cut it in 8-foot lengths and
Right.
stack it. We're gonna come out with the loader and the forks and haul it to the shop, put it in there, and then when people want it, they're gonna come with a trailer, we're gonna load it up.
Okay, then, so I think this price is going to, you're gonna have to be flexible,
Yeah.
flexible with it.
Well, that-
And it's all on handling the wood, that's where the changes are gonna come in.
That answers one of my questions. I was gonna ask who was gonna haul the wood.
Yeah, we'll
One
pick,
of, one of these bids I saw someplace, and they do vary quite a bit,
Ken?
where they said they would actually haul the wood.
yeah, they would get
One it
rid of it
was.
for us.
But now, okay, say we got 50 trees. You figured 40, 48 here, but you figured there might be some more out there.
Yes,
Okay, stump removal.
we were
What
planning
are
on,
we talking per stump?
Well, we were
This is
gonna do
be
that,
separate, although the one bid had it in there.
we were gonna do that ourselves.
Oh, we
Yeah,
have the machine that.
we
can
have a
handle
stump
that.
grinder,
That's right,
yes.
okay.
And that's typically a summer job. We send one guy out with the stump grinder, usually it's Chuck Parker, and he gets and takes the stumps out.
Okay, and now this $125 a cord, say we wind up with 100 cords, I have no idea how much it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Will that money go back to pay,
Yes.
pay off this, okay?
That's correct.
And I hope you get the 125 a cord, but I think you're shooting high, because a lot of that stuff is rotten. And I'm not gonna pay $125 a cord for rotten maple. But
And it's big,
I wish you the best of luck on it.
Yeah.
Well, if they buy it, if it's 2 foot diameter and they buy it, that's what they're gonna get what they want.
Now, we talked about also trimming some of the dead.
yes.
Existing trees.
I didn't talk to Aspen about it, but we've talked, Ray and I have had that conversation. And some of the dead stuff where there's 1 or 2 branches that are sticking way up, as they're going down the road, I'm gonna have them stop and just cut that top out and get rid of it.
I've seen there are a few out there with just one big, huge dead branch,
Oh, yeah.
and the tree should survive with that.
Yes,
fall.
there are some that will be just fine after we trim some of the dead out of it. And there's some where there's dead branches hanging in there that we have to get out.
So if we decide to go with Asplund, do we want to do a not to exceed number on this? Oh, we do have the 15,000 is gonna cover.
Well,
everything.
if you want to pick a not to exceed number, I'll work them up to that number.
Okay.
Give me some leeway to work with them on some of this stuff.
And where is it coming out of?
Parks and Rec.
Aspen?
Correct, okay.
The money's coming out
Oh.
of Parks and Rec. This was not a budgeted item, but last year, Parks and Rec, we put in $23,000 from timber harvest into Parks and Rec. And that money will be used for this, and then it will be, like, for selling the firewood, we'll get paid back into Parks and Rec to recover the cost. Plus, Joe, with Asplund's, we get the chips then. So
Yeah.
we can use them in the parks, we can use them where we need
Yeah,
chips.
all the chips will be dumped up on top of
Would they be
Norway.
able to use them for the wastewater, when we're
If we
talking
go with
composting?
if we go with the compost, yes, they'll be able to be used for that.
Are they gonna haul the chips up there?
Yes,
They
they're
will.
hauling the chips. Once the truck is full, they're gonna go up and dump it, they come back, do another one.
When we talked about it with ours, we were concerned because in the summer, you don't like to drop them on the road. How is Asplund gonna take it down? Are they gonna drop them in pieces, or are they gonna
They're
drop the
gonna
whole thing?
piece them out.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that Asplund Tree be approved for tree removal services for a total not to exceed $15,000.
I'll support.
Motion made by Chris, supported by George. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes,
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yes.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have a resolution 2014-14. It's the utility and operating fee structure. We just went over those in the public hearing. I'll go over the rate increases one more time, just so everybody knows at this point. The electric is increasing .0025 per kilowatt, which is a 2% increase per kilowatt. These will be effective on from July's utilities, so it'll be your August bill. The internet is increasing $7, but speeds are increasing as well. Wastewater is, your ready-to-serve fee is increasing $5 from 15 to 20, and your usage charge is increasing $1 per 1,000 gallons. On your water, your usage charge is increasing 75 cents per 1,000 gallons from $3.50 to $4.25. And one that's effective in May, so we will see it on your next bill, was a change in the PCAC from a 2.5 cent floor to a 1.5 cent floor. 1 cent floor. One question I had with utility rates, and it's something I've questioned every year. With the electric, our PCAC continually runs negative. We've had it in 3.5 years, 3 times positive, and we make the 2% jump every year. So are we, the PCA seems to handle rate differences. Are we setting it too high because it's consistently running negative? It's the same question I had last year.
Yeah, and my answer last year will be the same as this year. We try to keep your base rate current and not negatively impact it. And by increasing the base rate, when we get the rate increases for the wholesale power, like we do every year, which typically average
About
2% to us, and then we pass that along. So the answer, I think, to your question would be that I don't think we're artificially setting it too high. I think we're just keeping up. And when you look historically, what the hydro did, right after we had one drought year, and it ran just a little bit negative, not very much. That was almost perfect. And then we had a decent water year the next 2 years. This past summer was a very good water year, and so it did negatively affect the rate, almost to the full 2.5% on many occasions. So the customers were getting a big discount on their rate because of that. So, no, I think we're doing it the right way. So.
Any other questions or comments on the rates?
We'll be adjusting the inlet speeds on the sheet, or the sheet on here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Dr. Hayes, Lee? Any other rates and fees that we have in the city will be staying the same? Just the ones that will be changing are the ones that we went over. Okay, if I hear no other questions, I'm looking for a motion.
Make a motion to pass resolution 2014-14, the utility and operating fee structures.
Support.
Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yeah, yes. Next is Resolution 2014-15. This is the rates for the non-union employees. This sheet is the pay rates for the manager, superintendent, chief of police, city attorney, assessor, museum director, fire chief, assistant fire chief, what the volunteer firemen make, and then our seasonal and summer employees and our golf employees. Are there any questions on this?
Any increases in them, Jeremy? In any of
No,
them?
there are no increases this year. It's the same as what we had last year.
Are we above the proposed minimum wage increase?
Oh, we are below, overall, we're below the proposed minimum wage increase, but they're going to step it. I haven't seen the final proposal, but they are going to step that in a multi-year fashion.
I read it today, that it was going to 850, 875,
First year.
stepping up.
Yeah,
And we'll have to
the final
address
is 925.
Okay. Do we need to address that in here, or is it, we just address it as it comes?
For the first year, I believe that we'll be able to deal with it in this resolution, but we'll, if for some reason, there's only one rate that, well, there's two actually, there's a seasonal summer. Our seasonal summer, we may have to address that if that goes through.
And we have to address, as soon as the state approves that, we have to.
As soon as it becomes effective.
Correct, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know the effective date on that. I know when they passed it. I don't know the date each step
I
becomes.
think they were saying it this year.
Well, yeah, when this year.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering, if we need to,
Most of the seasonal summer will be gone in
gone by,
August.
okay.
So they won't. it
Right,
won't
the
affect
ones that
them.
are affected will be post-August, so my recommendation is to move this forward and then address it next year.
Okay.
Because it's, we'll have to address it though before summer starts.
Right. Okay, Lee, Dr. Hayes, any questions? George, anything else?
We approve resolution 2014-15. rates for non-union employees.
Second?
Motion made by George, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yes?
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Approval of GIS web hosting contract, Brighton Township. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the same type of contract that we approved a few meetings ago with Waseda Township. Brighton Township has also wanted to join us in our web hosting, putting their GIS system out online. I have given you in your report the breakdown of cost savings for the city over a 3-year period. The first year, as we discussed with Waseda, it will be the same with Brighton. The cost is basically going to be a transfer through, so there's a development cost. The hosting that year is part of that development cost, so Brighton would pay 100% of that cost through the city. In the year 2 and year 3 is where we actually will see the saving. The total net gain to the city over a 3-year period is $4,200. So,
Ray, what would it cost them to set up their own system if they didn't, versus piggybacking on us?
well, the development cost would be the same. The hosting cost would be roughly similar to what we host at $5,000 currently. So what we're doing is they're sharing some of the cost, and we're saving money. So you see with Waseda Township and then Brighton Township, you know, there's at $2,000, $2,500 a piece for that, and the city is dropping almost in half our cost.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
Make a motion that GIS web hosting agreement with Brighton Township be approved with fee structure of $3,000 for year 1, $2,500 for year 2, $2,500 for year 3.
Support.
Motion made by Chris, supported by Dr. Hayes. Roll call.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yep.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Next on the agenda, we have Resolution 2014-16. This is the authorizing notice of intent for the sewer collection project. What this is it's a resolution that says we're going to be going out to seek bond, we're going to be going out to get bond funding for our collection project for our sewer fund. And this is just the notice of intent that we are going to be doing this. Ray, any-
Well, we've had a number of these come through over the years. Again, as you indicated, this is a requirement that we post a notice to the public. This will be in the paper, and the notice will show that we're going for sewer will be an intent to set the bonds at $2 million. The actual estimated project cost is $1.65 million, but we always put in an additional amount in the resolution in case there's a slight increase in by the time we get to the bonding stage, as we don't want to come back out and reissue the notice. So 2014-16 is for the sewer collection project.
I'd just like to make a comment here that all this started in 2006. Things move slow.
Okay, Jay was just letting me know that he has looked at all the notices, and they look in order. With that, unless there's any other questions or comments, I'm looking for a motion.
I make a motion that Resolution 2014-16 be approved, the sewer fund notice of intent resolution.
Support.
Motion made by Lee, supported by George. Roll call.
Mr. Ball?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Okay, Resolution 2014-17 is another authorizing notice of intent. This one is for the water distribution project. It's a notice of intent that we are going to be seeking bond funding for this project. We are going to be seeking $3.2 million in funding. Currently, the project is estimated as $2.807 million, As Mr. Anderson said with the sewer project, this is a not-to-exceed number, and we would only seek the funding that we needed for the project. And that this was, in case there's changes, so we do not have to come back again in the future for small changes, and by the time we get to the time when we go for the bonds. Anything else?
It's the same comment as the sewer collection. You know, we're going out at the same time because the projects are going to be run at the same time. Overall, the projects are roughly the same size monetary-wise, but because the sewer had that grant component, that's why you see it as less of an actual bond issue. But again, per the rules, we have to public notice, and we like to get this in the paper as soon as possible.
And this is for the part that will be the road, in-road project that'll be done in 15-16.
That's correct.
Any other questions, comments? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2014-17, authorizing notice intent for water distribution project.
Second.
Motion made by George, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yep.
Next on the agenda, approval private irrigation systems on public property. This is something we began discussing in the fall of last year. At that time, council's direction was for staff to grandfather the old ones that were currently in place and come up with a set of policies for the new ones, to allow new ones. Since that time, we've had contact with especially our insurance company, and the insurance company's recommendation was that we not move forward with allowing new ones. There's liability issues well involved with that, and with that, staff was asking the council to take another look at this to see where we want to stand on it, whether we want to continue with that. The recommendation made is to grandfather the existing ones, require them to come in and register so we know where they are if we're going to be doing projects on the utilities or in the right-of-ways, so we know they're there, so we don't hit them or have problems, because we've had problems even some, like the irrigation systems at the Catholic Church when we were doing the road by there. We didn't know it was in the boulevard, and we ended up ripping it up. And that kind of system is included, not just the water lines running under the road. And then the recommendation is to not allow new ones on that.
Well, I've been for this all along. Let them do it and let more people do it. So what this notice is saying, that if I have a boulevard and I want to water it with an irrigation system, I can't do it to make the front of my house look nicer and increase my property value by having a nice boulevard outside. Because that's one of the big items when you go to sell a house. People look at the landscape, and that's a big item. So I'm dead set against this.
You know, I think for some reason here, there's two different objects here. We're looking at irrigating a boulevard, which Lee is talking about, and irrigating it underneath the road. I think there's two completely different.
Well, they are different, but they're both related because they're both using public right-of-way for irrigation purposes. If you wanted to separate them out, we can discuss separating them out and doing different things with them.
Well, for the boulevard though, I mean, they can still water the boulevard, but their irrigation lines have to be on their own private property. So we're not necessarily,
Yeah,
City
but
can't.
I want to put an irrigation, I got a big, long boulevard. I don't, but if I did, and I want to put an irrigation system in there to make it look nice, this is saying I can't do it. And I think that's totally wrong. And as long as these people sign off on it, leaving the city not responsible, I have no problem with it. And that's been my feeling from day one, and I'm not going to change on that.
Well, with this signing off, both the insurance company and our attorney have both said that that won't hold any weight in court, that the city is not liable, that those kind of documents don't hold any value in court.
You know
And I
what
said
would
before,
look
that's
at,
ridiculous.
Jeremy, I tend to agree with Lee, because really and truthfully, I got my irrigation on the boulevards, and I mean, I never checked with anybody when I put it in. Of course, I ruptured a gas line too. I mean, but that was my mistake. You're putting it out there to, I mean, I put it out there for a reason, to irrigate into my house, rather than, okay, I don't have much of a yard out in front. If I put it on my house and irrigate out, half of my irrigation would be go down the street. Well, and, I mean, you think you got the same thing over here, Ray, at, on Norway Street here, on a couple of blocks.
George,
Truthfully, you know, these are, I look at it as two completely different.
and that's fine, and you can separate out any kind of decision based on that. I needed to add that because if we just use a generic term on public property, you know, that is on public property. So can it be managed on the boulevard? A lot easier than running under a road or through a culvert and into a lake.
No,
I mean,
I
Well, that's
agree.
right.
you know, pumps
Well,
at
like,
lakes and
like I
whatnot.
said, we can separate them out. If we want to discuss on just the water lines running under and the irrigations as separate things, we can do that.
I agree, Ray, but if we're gonna start separating these things out, and Jay, I mean, if we're gonna take everything out that we do on that boulevard, and you know, okay, you're responsible for cutting the grass, you're responsible for this, you're responsible for the sidewalk. All these things you're responsible, but you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that. I mean, I just can't get the connection why we have to have separation, especially on a boulevard. I mean, you know, why we have to have this.
When we talk to the insurance company, my recollection, and somebody was on that conversation, if they disagree, please speak up. It was my understanding that we weren't talking about somebody's boulevard section necessarily. Okay, that wasn't the concern. The concern was these jury rig things where we get them running under a road and through a culvert and into a lake, you know, for a pump, and nobody knows they're there, and there's electrical wires, and there's all kinds of things there which present a danger. Okay? And somebody can sign off and agree to indemnify the city of Norway and say, okay, if anything happens, I'll pay for it myself, I'll cover you guys, but you know what? It's no good if they don't have the insurance. And if their insurance doesn't go along with it, or if they don't have enough coverage, guess who gets to pay? The people sitting in this room. Okay? That's who gets to pay.
But that's where this started. Chris was talking about getting permits to do this, and that should be under this permit.
Well, if you want to vote
All
in
this
that
stuff
direction,
should be
that's
in
fine.
that permit.
No, Mr. Mangini, if that's the way you feel, I'm not trying to dissuade you. I just want to make sure we understand what we're talking about. We weren't necessarily talking about the boulevard sections in front of somebody's home. What we were talking about is going on to city property, going through our culverts and that sort of
Right,
thing.
but I still feel the same way. It's just that
Okay.
this was added in this about the boulevards, which I didn't realize before.
Well,
Like I said, what we can do, for this discussion, separate out, have a discussion on the water lines, running to the pumps at the
I
lakes,
think
and
it's the
then-
same thing. Let them use the boulevards, period, whether they're running a line under it, under the street, or watering their boulevard or their yard.
Essentially, you're allowing taking of public property for private use, right? That's what, you're fine with
They're not taking it.
it. Are they on public property?
They're under it. You wanna
Are they
look at it
using
that way.
public property? Are they paying for it? It's a
And see,
taking of public
that's,
property.
Jeremy, it's the part that I don't like on this boulevard. You know, you take a boulevard, it's in front of my house, sometimes I can use it and sometimes I can't. All depends what I want to use it for. I can't put a sign up there, but you better damn well have it cut, otherwise you get a ticket or not. I mean, this is the part that I don't like about it. But regardless of the fact, if we're gonna go this route, or if the people like to vote on it, I think that a person should ban, the city should ban, have something, how you're going to install this thing under the road, what is in there, where the pump is gonna be, it should be inspected and done legally and right.
And that would all come under the permitting process that
Well, what we would have,
Chris was talking about.
what we would have to do is we'd have to turn that over to the county code commission, because, you know, we're not qualified to inspect electrical, we're not qualified to inspect mechanical. We can qualify to inspect zoning, and, you know, basic location. But, you know, you're talking about when you sign off on a permit, if something happens and it was installed correctly, the entity that signed off on the permit's responsible.
Well, no, I don't think that's true. I mean, if.
It's absolutely
If we
true.
have, if we set up the process so they have to have a permit to meet our standards, the liability still is on the utility or the private owner to maintain that line underneath. And if that line, even though it was put in properly, still caused the problem, it would still be the owner's responsibility to fix that. I mean, is
Well,
that-
I think the city still might have some potential liability, at least that's what our insurance carrier is telling us.
But even if you
There
have a
would
set of
be
standards, you still need an
liability
inspection.
Correct.
And that's gonna fall under.
The liability under the ones that already have it doesn't count?
Well,
It would count, but.
it would count, but I mean, we didn't know, we didn't authorize it.
Well,
So council-
the city helped them put some of the stuff in. I
Well,
mean,
there
nobody
may have
knew
been city
about it.
employees who may have done that, but I don't think that was something that was either scheduled as a result of instructions by the utility superintendent, perhaps, the city manager, or the council. Look, how you vote on this is completely up to you. I just want to make sure that we're all clear that I don't want to subject the city of Norway to any liability issues simply because we want to try to help somebody out. We can separate the boulevard and some of this other stuff. If the council doesn't want to do that, that's entirely up to them.
The ones that are there would have the liability. However, the recommendation is to grandfather them in just for those people.
But I don't think, I mean, depending on how we go with this, one way or the other, you know, if we decide that we're gonna make this a permitted, you know, allowance, then we need to regulate the ones that are there. And if we say, for instance, that you can't run power and have a pump sitting on public property, you know, we're gonna have to address that. I think we should address that with the current state, you know, installations that are in there, and not just allow them to go through, because that is a safety issue. That's a public safety issue. That's private property sitting on public property. I'm all for it, allowing these private utilities, and again, this goes back, I think, to our right-of-way ordinance that we just passed, and from looking at other municipalities, county and state, you know, most of them state in their right-of-way ordinance underground utilities, whether it's public or private, and they have rules and regulations for each entity. They have to follow a permitting process, and with that permitting process, there are guidelines that have to be followed and maintained. Each road that's in the city, you know, whatever jurisdiction it is, that's who governs that, you know, right away. And I think these rules, I'm not sure how exactly we, you know, tend on putting this together, if it's gonna be in that right-of-way ordinance, or if it's a separate ordinance altogether. But we should have something in the right-of-way ordinance that defines underground utilities for private use, whether that's allowed, not allowed, and if it is, if it's permitted.
When, in the right-of-way ordinance, the term private utility is terms such as a We Energies, a DTE Energy, your gas company. You know, they're not public utility like city water, sewer. So that's, I think, what the intent is. There's a way that we can set up a permit process. I'm just saying that in order for us to do it right, we're gonna have to have a set of standards, which we would have an engineering firm look at that and put that together. And that has to have an inspection process, because, again, it has to be, you know, just like your home, just like on your own property, you have to, even though there's a set of codes and standards that you build to, that the builder builds to, there still is a code commission that handles to make sure that it's installed correctly. And we're gonna have to go through all that.
And we're gonna have to go through that, and it's gonna cost us money, and we just have, I mean, it's probably gonna be an expensive process. You know, if somebody wants to put an irrigation line under a road, it's gonna have to have engineered plans, and someone's gonna have to inspect it, and we're gonna have to pass that cost on to the person doing it.
Henceforth, the permit.
And then whether we permit it or deny it completely, you know, if people aren't happy with the cost or not happy, they're probably still gonna do it, whether we disallow it or not. So at least if we permit it, there's a process in place, we put the guidelines in place, and we charge appropriately, we pass those costs on to the customer that's applying for the permit. And it's not to say that if you put in a permit, they can't be denied. It can be I think it can be on a case-by-case basis. I don't see it has to be a blanket, you pay the money and put the permit in, and it's automatically approved. And we do that with zoning all the time.
Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just, food for more thought on this whole thing is public and private utilities, like the electric and gas, and depending on the entity, are all in the Michigan MISTIG system. And if you put this stuff in, that will not be in the Michigan MISTIG system, because that homeowner would have to pay to be in that system to get it located if we're doing digging in that area. Not saying we should or shouldn't do this because of that, but it's just something else that you should be aware of, that if we
Well,
are
could
digging,
Could we add a fee to that and put it in ourselves?
I don't know that, Jeremy, if we could or not.
I mean, we'd know how much it would cost to add
You'd
it.
have to have it mapped out, it'd have to be on your system maps, and then you'd have to take the responsibility to have it all located. But my point was just that if we are digging in that area and you called MISTIG to get everything cleared, that you can dig there, that would not show up with the normal MISTIG system.
And for most regulations that I saw on that, it states in there pretty clearly that the private party is responsible for locating, that it will not be covered by the
That's
state
correct.
entity.
I mean, if we go through it, it's not our problem.
Yeah, it has to be laid out in the permit process or whatever, that
You know,
we're
because
not.
I know how that is, because we went through some stuff and we broke it, you know, and there's a lot of problems. It's gotta be clear that, you know, if we break it, I'm sorry, but, you know, you're gonna have to fix it yourself.
And they have, and if we have to do work in the boulevard, and that utility has to be, whatever they have in the ground has to be moved, it's at the cost of the customer. You know, the city's not gonna pick up the tab to move a pipe or something. The customer that owns that has to pick up the tab to move that.
Now you tell me.
That's all I had, just something else to think about, because I just thought of that while we were talking.
For
No,
the
I-
discussion, I don't think we're gonna be solving this
No,
tonight.
no, I just-
But for the discussion, Joe, could you check to see if we can, if as part of our permitting process,
Yep.
include that they have to map exactly where it's gonna be and add that fee in to the, can you
Okay,
see if we can do that?
I can inquire.
Just check if we can even do that.
Okay.
Register it on behalf of the customer.
I don't think we wanna do that.
Well, it's gotta be registered somewhere, because we've gotta know what's there.
If it's, the permit's in there, we have it on file that they put that line in. Part of the permit is stating that even though this is permitted, we're not
But
responsible for locating.
for us, we need to know what's where.
Correct, but it's still the homeowner's responsibility to locate that line.
Well, I don't think you want to put us in the responsibility of installing it either, because just like somebody's sewer lateral that goes out in the street, I mean, they get a contractor, the contractor goes through the right-of-way permitting process, you know, and has to restore the street the way that they left it, or that he saw it. So, you know, you don't want us to be installing these lines. I mean, they're gonna have to get.
We're not.
Well, there was a mention about
Point.
that.
That's my
There
point.
was a mention about that.
That's my point, that the homeowner is responsible for everything. All we're, the permitting process is doing is stating that here are the guidelines, we're gonna inspect it, you're gonna pay the fees associated with this, and then you have to maintain it, you have to move it if it's in our way, you have to locate it if we're coming through there. They're responsible for everything.
And that
also-
permit will be on file, and they'll know exactly where the line is, because that should be right there.
Yeah, and if we're
Except
coming.
nobody checks those permits when they're going through doing a project. That's why it needs to be on a map somewhere. It's gotta be registered, should be registered on a map somewhere.
Well, it's not like Detroit, and where they got tearing half the place down. I mean, for the half a dozen people that have it, and for maybe another half a dozen more that want it, I don't think we have to get that carried away about
Well,
it.
with the system that we have in place now, it's pretty simple to attach the permit, you know, to the property. You know, so I mean, I think we're in a better position today than 10 years ago of keeping track of the permits. I mean, we do that now with variations, you know, zoning. We scan them and attach them, you know, to our GIS system. So, you know, you just go to that area and you click on it. So I mean, I'm less worried about keeping track of a permit, more on the function, you know, of getting to that point.
On the flip side of this whole thing, especially with the examples with the pulling the water out of the lake, I guess that's where I have a little bit of a problem. I get, if there's permitted process to get something underneath the road or whatever, if it was going from private property to private property, I don't have a problem. Or if you're watering a boulevard with a source of water still coming from your private property. But people are taking water from a public resource and pulling it onto their private property, or having equipment sitting on public property and using that to draw a resource to private property. I don't know what the grounds are for that. That seems an issue.
I questioned the same thing, Chris. That was my concern about some of this stuff.
If you own
because
land
you go across the
along a
street
river or a
and
lake,
put a
you're
pump.
allowed to take water from that lake. If you own land
What happens
along
if
the
there's a road
river or
in
lake,
between?
I've talked to Roger Pellegrini, and he does not have to get a permit to pump. for
But his
private-
land is,
For small volumes, larger volumes, you do have to get a permit.
His land goes up to the.
but his land goes up to it. I mean, there's not a public road
Right.
breaking the two up. And that's, I guess, my question. I mean, if the homeowner, obviously there's right of way. I mean, their property line doesn't cross that road. Correct?
And I think what we're talking about is like a public park, like Strawberry Lake, where somebody just drills under there and starts taking water out of there. That's all city property.
Exactly, Jay.
I mean, what's to stop me if I wanted to go down there and just, say I had a lawn business and wanted to pump water out of
That
there,
doesn't mean I can draw the
out
water.
of the lake, and go distribute to my customers.
That's the DNR.
Well, I think the one concern that came forward was that, and actually an existing pump that's at the edge of the lake at Strawberry Lake, where, you had people coming and going by the water, and someone actually got yelled at for being near the pump from the property owner. I mean, it's on private property, or it's on public property, and it's a park. It's not like just a stream out somewhere or whatever. So you're gonna have people all over. So, that is its own separate issue. It's not just the pipe going under the road. I mean, if the pump is right there at the water's edge in the park, that's a whole another set of.
But under this, that's grandfathered. Or are you gonna make him get it out of there?
It is grandfather. We talked about having it removed. We talked about a number of different things with the current, or the existing ones. I like to, if we're gonna do the permitting process, make everybody go through it, because quite frankly, there's a number of them that are running through, there's electric lines running through culverts. Some of them, like we mentioned, the Norway Street project, we had two boulevard irrigation lines that were hit. We did talk to the property owner, ahead of time, for the project, but because of the way projects run and the contractor's just trying to get his work done, he tagged onto it and, yanked it. And property owner was blaming the city and wanting the city to replace it all.
But the
So-
city didn't pay for it.
Now, Jeff, do you remember what happened in that case? Do you remember that situation? We ended up having to deal with that, if I remember right, or the contractor did.
I think the contractor ended up dealing with it.
Yeah.
And I have
So-
personally been through that, through court, with irrigation lines being in a right-of-way or utility easement. And if that irrigation line is in the easement or right-of-way, and a utility hits it, it's the homeowner's responsibility to take care of it.
It's, from a legal standpoint, you're absolutely right, but during the course of a project, anxieties are high. They thought they had it far enough, they didn't have it far enough off, it was hit. So, it's still finger pointing and, difficult situation. We even knew it was there when we did the project, and we still had some issues. So I just brought the boulevard part up mainly because if you're gonna say public property, you have to bring this up. You can't just ignore that part of it, because it's really falls under the same part of the designation. It could be different situations, just like you say during a permit process, it could be individually looked at. I agree with some of the things, George, you're talking about. We're asking the residents to maintain the boulevards. It's just that we want to make sure through this whole thing that we don't put ourselves out there down the road, that we're going to have a big headache. And we want to know where they're at. That's a big thing. There's a number of them, we don't even know how many are out.
And on the same topic, So, I mean, I asked Joe, or I talked to Joe here a while back, you know, where do we sit when we plow cable in underneath? I mean, I know we got it up on the hill, we got a number of places around town, you know, what's our situation there? What's our liability and how are we covered and everything? Of course, he said, you know, our insurance covers all that stuff, which is fine, but, are we one and the same, or no? I mean, I can see where we should be divided, but, you know. I agree 100% with Chris. You know, I'm not against allowing this to happen, but I think it's gotta be, it's totally gotta be regulated, and it's gotta be put in right. If it's put in, it's gotta be put in right. How we go about permits or anything else, I have no idea. Jay, I don't know if you could advise us or steer us in the right direction, what we have to do, and what we have to do.
Well, we have to take a really close look at it.
Well, it was a good 6 months ago, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but I want to say it was about 6 months ago that you had mentioned getting a permitting process and asking staff to work something out. Now, if one of us or two of us have to sit down with staff to work out a permit process, that's fine. I'm willing to be on that.
Well, I mean, Chris, it appears Chris has gone through this stuff. So, I mean, if Chris would be kind enough, I'm sure he appears to have a heck of a lot more knowledge in some of the stuff than, especially I know that. I would highly recommend or ask Chris to get involved with it.
This is the fourth time we brought this up since about February. And we brought it up right after we found out, and we had a conversation with with our insurance company. We had Jay together, working on a conference call with them. We brought it up that, we thought that we had an issue with liability. And a decision wasn't made. We brought it up again, and I believe in March. We're in May, into the 1st of June. I think it's about the fourth time. So it's not that we didn't put together the permit process unwillingly. It's just that we felt that we needed to have a solid direction if that's what you're going to do, because it was going back and forth as to do we allow it, don't we allow it, and that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. We have to get, like I said, we got to have a set of standards that are put together. Not put together by my office, but probably through an engineering office. And so, before we went and expensed that kind of cost, we wanted to make sure that that was the motion resolution by the council.
If I had to summarize my thoughts on this, is that we should allow it as a permitted process that can be denied or approved. It has to be inspected, and the liability is then put on the owner. And I also believe that there should not be any active devices that are on public property, meaning nothing that's powered electrically.
No, can I say something, Ray? I mean, I was talking with the insurance company, and you can say that, but the insurance company made it clear that the liability is going to be with the city, so you have to be okay with that if you're allowing this. I mean,
The liability from what standpoint? As far as someone getting injured or someone
anything
damaging?
anything happens,
What's
even
the
if,
saying?
even if there's a
Okay.
permit process.
We've got 8 people, roughly
made
8,
that
9
perfectly
people.
clear.
So is our liability going to increase because we put another 9 on there?
You can, if
So
you're
we're
comfortable
if we
taking that
take away
chance.
the electric portion of it, meaning there's only passive devices that are allowed on private property. meaning
Just the pipe.
Pipe or a sprinkler.
Insurance company's telling me not to.
No electrical devices can be down there. That gets rid of some of the liability. And then we can set the standards up for whatever is on public property that it has to be covered, whether it's a, pipe that's going into the lake, which again, I don't necessarily agree with, but it has to be underwater, under cover, whatever hazards that we can minimize as best as we possibly can.
Could I just add to this, Chris? Joe? should we consider, and this would most likely have to be bored anyhow, that this would have to be within another pipe?
Well, I mean, that could be entirely in the permit process, that if you wanted it double jacketed, you could do that,
You know,
yes.
I mean, you just can't push your pipe through it.
Yeah.
Like we're, have to, when underneath highways or any other
When-
road, that
Bore rigs today are very good, they're very accurate. And I think the big question here is bed and liability. But you gotta think of the homeowner also, when you think about doing this, and if they're willing to take that liability, that's fine. But if they go to a private contractor and have a bore rig come in and they're boring underneath the streets and they hit some public facilities, then they're gonna be responsible also for fixing those public facilities. That could come at a substantial cost. Not saying that would ever happen because they're very accurate, but it could happen. And that
Well,
has to
that's
be in
what I
that
mean,
permit process, if you're
pipe
gonna do
inside the
that,
pipe.
to say if you go through, punch into a water line or a sewer line or whatever it may be, electric line, that it's up to the homeowner to pay to have that repaired.
Well, that should be understood when you're putting it in.
Yeah, but you're talking about a lot of things, and these are just things that come to mind that I want everybody to be aware of when you do this.
I mean, I guess from a liability standpoint, if we're talking about what could happen if we have something with a sprinkler head on the boulevard and someone walking on the sidewalk trips over that thing, I mean, I'm guessing that would be the city's.
We could be held, they should be held liable, but we could be held
But
liable.
they also have homeowners insurance. So the city and the two insurance companies can fight amongst themselves. You follow?
I mean, I think if we can mitigate as much of the hazards, I mean, no electrical, there stands for what can be on public property, it does lower our risk a little bit. And we're putting as much, if not everything, on the homeowner.
Yeah, and I think that this thing with the watering the boulevards, I don't think that's totally unreasonable. That's pretty much on their lot, where you get people that are going across the road, under the road, through sewer pipes or water pipes that we have and maintain, and they're using our utilities. Okay, they're using our utilities in order to go ahead and go get some free water, which I don't care about the free water, but the point is they're using our utilities. And now we got a problem.
Well,
If we're giving them permission to do that.
Is there a legal standpoint, whether it's from the DNR or from the state, as far as a private homeowner drawing from public property?
There is a permitting process for large volumes of water.
But they're very
Small,
large.
But it's very
Very
large.
large.
Even Pellegrini's farms don't use enough water to require a permit.
That's not true. The state of Michigan, Department of Environmental,
Would you care to step up to the podium, sir?
I didn't want to do this. State of Michigan requires a $100 permit to draw water out of any body in the state of Michigan. If, as long as you're using less than 100,000 gallons a year, it's $100. That's it. The state of Michigan will allow you to bore under any highway. They have a one-page form.
But I'm gonna correct you on that, because I read that form, and that form only applies to state highways.
Right, and the
This
reason
is
that
not a
is,
state highway.
but I asked you to call me, Chris, but the reason that is because in Michigan, that's the only one that has a statute is on state highway right-of-ways.
And every municipality has a right-of-way ordinance that can
They don't
govern
have
those-
them, not all of them.
Not all of them, but they.
And actually, Bill Santilli said that you can actually go under there, and if there's no ordinance, you can just do it. And you do not have one. And every one of your sewer lines that go into the main is on public property, because the homeowner is responsible to the main.
Well, if that's the truth, then I think it's even more.
And as far as liability, I called that guy. Of course, it's a liability, but you have a park that's on a Superfund site. You have signs up that say, use at your own risk in the winter. That's liability. Everything the city does is liability with public things. Every park, every time somebody steps on their sidewalk. So, you know, you can talk liability all you want, but every sewer line is in the public right of way, and the homeowner is responsible to the main.
Thank you.
I guess that just proves the fact then that we would want to have a permitting process in something in our right of way that states it, otherwise it's free reign.
Well, I don't think that anybody that's gonna tie into one of the lakes or streams is gonna need a permit. The golf course doesn't even need a permit. So, you know, it's a pretty high standard for what they, you know, all bodies in the state of Michigan are owned by the state of Michigan. Whether they're privately owned all the way around them or not, all water is owned by the state of Michigan. So,
But if there's.
it's not our water, I mean, it's the state of Michigan's water.
If it is a permanent process, then let it be a permanent process.
Right.
I guess that's another, you know, step in the whole process. If somebody wants to go through all the hassle of getting a permit through us, through the state, to pull water, then let them go do that. In fact, I would welcome that we throw it on there, because it's one more step they have to go through. If they're gonna be serious about doing this, they have to follow all those steps. If they wanna pay our $100 on top of all the other fees they're gonna have to pay to get this done, draw a little bit of water to water your lawn on the lake, I guess let them do it. But we can't not, I mean, have something in place for it. Either we have to not allow it, or we have to have a process in place to.
Well, I think we've all spoken our piece, except Doc, you want to say anything about it?
Yes, I'm slow to interject at times, and I feel that what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I don't think people should be grandfathered in. If a permit is needed, then everybody should get the permit. If somebody asks to do something and we tell them no, and everyone else who didn't ask just doesn't, we say yes, that doesn't make any sense at all to me. So I think it should all be the same. Nobody should be grandfathered in. We should get permits for everybody. And I'm always in favor of letting people use public property if we're going to improve the city. I still think it's silly that we don't let these people out in Forest Park put in a garden on city property. I think we should let people water their lawns or do things to improve the looks of the city. Before all this controversy, I was willing to go ahead and do everything without a permit, but now I fully agree that we should have a permitting process, and it should include everybody, those who have systems in place and those who want to put them in place.
I agree with Chris.
Well, you have the direction.
Okay, we got the direction.
Develop the permitting process.
We will do that.
It will be a slow process in developing this permitting process. Likely nothing will be ready for this summer. Probably looking at next year, late fall or next year before we're having anything done. Okay, last thing on the agenda for the evening, the Dickinson Area Partnership, half the dues. Lee and I had the opportunity to go up and sit with the county board representatives from Kingsford, Reading Township, and Iron Mountain, and Sagola Township were there.
Oh, Skull, that was from Iron Mountain. Oh, it's Skull, okay.
So Sagola, like I said, Sagola was there.
Yeah.
And in the discussions we had with the county board, we went over the partnership. As Ray had us in his write-up, the county board did not seem at all receptive. They will not look at it this year, and they did not seem that receptive to even looking at it for next year to change the due structure to one that all of the municipalities, Iron Mountain, Kingsford, Norway, and Brighton Township agreed on, based on SEB, the equalized value of property as to how much the dues should be. They will consider looking at it when they go through their budget in the fall, but not before that, and only if there's certain reporting requirements that they want in place. What we have on the agenda tonight is the other half of the 2,000. We paid 2,000. This is the other half. This will be the 4,000 for the remainder of the year.
Can I make a few comments,
Go ahead.
Jeremy? I think it was all cut and dried. There was no way they were going to listen to us. When the meeting starts off with the gavel going down saying this meeting is going to last 60 minutes and that's it, you know, okay. Well, anyway, everybody agreed supposedly to break it down by the SEV, then the fees would be Iron Mountain 5,000, Kingsford 4, Norway 3, Breading Township 3, and the county 10. The county flatly said no, and basically everything that happens in the county helps, whether it's Norway, Kingsford, Iron Mountain, Breading, any of the townships. It all benefits the county, and they bucked it. And I think it's totally ridiculous that they did, and I am dead set against paying this extra $2,000 now. I usually go along with staff recommendation, but I'm not gonna, especially since we found out that Iron Mountain hasn't even paid their dues for the last 2 years. And yet, they're the ones that are getting most of the benefit out of this Dickinson area partnership.
I agree with Lee 100%.
We've been fighting this for 4 years.
Personally, I can see paying the other half of this year, but then this would be the last time we pay if they don't change. The county doesn't accept taking on the role of 10,000 leave at the end of the year, but I can see sticking with it for this year, for the rest of this year, to give them the chance to do the right thing and take on their share. Like, everybody agreed. All of us agreed that that was the way to go. That's my feeling.
I've got one question. Lee made the comment that Iron Mountain hasn't paid their dues for 2 years, is that correct?
Yes, they haven't been a member, they haven't been paid member for the last 2 years. We had talked to Jordan while we were at the meeting, that's what he'd said. That they haven't been a member of the partnership for 2 years.
And he didn't say if he was for it or against it, he said it was the
Well,
wishes of their council.
Well, yeah, and he said he found the formula acceptable, but again, it would be whether their council would approve it. So even if we all agreed and the county agreed, Iron Mountain still may choose not to pay it and go in. But at least the formula was an acceptable way to do it.
What was the discussion about Norway Township, Segola, all the other smaller townships?
That wasn't discussed. They didn't, the county.
That's
did not
where the
say-
county was gonna pick it up.
Basically, yeah.
Everybody wanted the county to jump their dues from 5 to 10, and basically pick up the townships.
That would
Although,
cover those. That
Was
would
it
cover-
Breading Townships and Incorporated Township, is that the difference?
Yeah.
Versus
Yes.
the other
Yeah,
townships?
they're charter
they're
townships,
Charter
so-
township, yeah.
So that was kind of what our intent was, to have the county pick them up by taking this. It wasn't really discussed much, and I don't know that, the way the meeting was going, I don't know that the county board would have cared, honestly, with the way they were reacting to questions and that at the meeting. The only thing they seemed to focus on, rather than, we were there to discuss the dues and the 5,000 to 10,000 for them. The only thing they talked about was reporting, that the partnership report to them differently and have a more thorough reporting to them of the activities they're doing. Is that right, Lee?
Right, but in the partnership's defense, like they were saying, well, we can't have Company A coming to us and saying, hey, we think we're gonna move there, and then the word gets out that Company A wants to do this, and all of a sudden Company C slips in. That's why they don't tell them everything that's going on.
Right.
I guess I agree with Jeremy, and I agree with Lee. I hate that we pay it, and it's not fair across the board, but I think we also need to support the partnership, because we do need their assistance in getting business to our area. I think it puts us in a bad position, just from a standpoint of Iron Mountain isn't paying anything, and they're probably getting the most benefit out of the partnership, whether they're paying for it or not. I guess I would say with, my opinion, we pay the remaining 2,000, and then, as Jeremy said, this is the last year we're hearing it if we don't see any changes.
Well, Chris, you know, they make a statement and the county won't even look at it because their budget's set and everything. Everybody's budget's set and everybody's tight. Why are we any different than anybody else? I don't see money rolling out of our ears that we have to step forward and pay the dues for Iron Mountain. I mean, I'm totally against it. We don't benefit at all from it, nothing.
It's a hard decision.
I agree, the county benefits as a whole, but tell me anything that,
Well, I think we do benefit, whether we're seeing it or not, but just by being in the partnership, as companies
I agree.
inquire to the partnership, they're mentioning, hey, come to Norway. You know, Norway's an option. Whether those companies decide to come to Norway or not isn't necessarily up to the partnership, but at least it's helping us expose our community.
That part is true.
But I
But
agree,
we're
George.
just tight on money budget than anybody else.
We don't see a lot of direct benefit. We haven't seen a lot of direct benefit from them, and I agree. Where we see is more the indirect. If Oldenburg in Kingsford, they might have a worker living in Norway. So we see money from them owning a house, them shopping here. We see more indirect. We don't see a lot of direct benefit from them. I will agree with that.
I don't even agree paying with the 3,000. Truthfully. I think it should be down more like 2.
Dr. Hayes?
Well, I guess I'm not shocked that Iron Mountain hasn't paid, and it doesn't make any sense for us to pay. If they're not gonna pay, they're the ones getting all the benefit.
Any other discussion? Looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we don't pay
Support.
the 2,000.
Motion made by George, supported by Lee to not pay the 2,000. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes,
No.
Mr. Gottstein,
No.
Mr. Ball,
What, yes, here?
Yes, we'll say do not pay it. No?
Yes.
Yes says do not pay. Yes says no.
Right.
Yes.
Mr. Oja,
No.
Mr. Menigini.
Yes.
I make a motion that we pay the 2,000 once Iron Mountain has paid their fees for the last 2 years.
Now you change it, Doc.
We gotta rescind the last one then.
Well, no, the last one goes through. It goes through.
Yeah,
the
because it
vote.
goes through, now we gotta pay them.
No, we don't.
No, we don't, because there was never a motion to pay them. This was a motion to not pay them.
Oh, motion to nothing.
Okay.
No, it doesn't.
No. It was said wrong.
Okay, is there a motion, is there support for Dr. Hayes' motion to pay them once Iron Mountain pays theirs?
If Iron Mountain pays theirs,
If Iron Mountain pays their 2.
I'll support that.
All right, Mr. Gottstein,
No.
Mr. Ball,
Now, am I voting yes or no here? I'm supporting Doc.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes will
Yes.
say you want us to pay the 2 if Iron Mountain pays theirs.
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Oja,
No.
Mr. Menigini.
Yes.
Dr. Hayes.
Yes.
Okay, so what we will be paying the 2,000 we owe if Iron Mountain pays what they haven't paid for the last 2 years.
Okay.
Good thought, Doc.
Okay. That concludes our business for the evening. Does anyone from the audience wish to address the council on any subject? Please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
For a half hour, you guys are doing such a good job here. Bill Aslan, 507 Second Avenue. My only question is, I have nothing against Marquette, but why do we only get news from Marquette on our channels?
Because the FCC set up boundaries as to where we can get our information, who can give us the information. And because we're in Michigan, they lumped us into Marquette. So we have to take the Marquette stations if offered for the Fox, the NBCs, the ABCs. We have to take Marquettes if possible. That's why we lost our Green Bay Fox. That's why our Escanaba, Channel 3 News now comes out of Escanaba instead of Green Bay. It's FCC
That's mostly
requirements.
Marquette too, once in a while
Right.
Escanaba.
Yeah,
CW is Marquette.
It's
They're all
FCC requirements. If we had our choice, we would have kept our Green Bay Fox. They said no.
I can give you an update on that, though, because they call it a designated marketing area, DMA. And what I found out in talking with other folks in DC is that all over the country, they have this issue. I mean, if you get down on the border of Atlanta or Georgia and Tennessee, you know, they have the issue. I mean, it's all over the country. And they recognize this actually in legislation out in DC. But the Telecommunications Act is actually scheduled to get opened up later this year and into next year. And there's no interest right now to take on this singular issue. So what they're going to do is they're going to negotiate this as part of the overall Telecommunications Act, Federal Telecommunications Act. I think they recognize that it's a problem. They just never, I think they didn't think it would become this big when they put it out. Is that fair to say?
But I think you have the possibility of losing people to Dish or DirecTV.
Right.
Where they can get these
They
channels.
can't though. If you live in Michigan, you have Michigan address on your billing for Dish or DirecTV, you have to get the Marquette stations. People can cheat that by putting a Wisconsin address when they order their Dish, and that'll let them get the Green Bay stations. But if you get Dish
But then
or Direct,
But then they don't get TV6. Then they can't get TV6. So you're either getting Green Bay or you're getting Marquette. So even if we argued and won to get the Green Bay stations, then we would lose TV6, which I think a lot of people would be upset with. So what I was trying to communicate this spring when I was out there is that we need to have freedom of choice, you know, because we were
Right.
willing to pay to have both stations on air, and that is choice for the residents, for the consumer. I think they understand that. I just don't think that they're ready to open it up.
It's, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
the
agree
gods
with
in
you, Doc,
Washington have told you what to
100%,
do.
because I don't like the setup they got now.
Oh, no, I mean, you put on the 9 o'clock on CW, you get Marquette. You put on 3, 6, or
Yeah.
10, you get Marquette again. Once in a while, they throw something in about Escanaba or maybe Dickinson County. 6 is the best for that, of being more fair.
Bill,
But God, it's the
your
same stuff
federal
over and over.
your federal government knows best.
Don't get me started on that.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to address the council?
Jeff White, W5636 Crescent Street. Coming up to talk about roads. I know you guys have a lot of conversations about that. It's a big sticking point for a lot of people. I live, if you don't know where Crescent Street is, just a little tiny half-moon road up on the top of Norway Hill there. And it's right off of Summit. And Summit is atrocious. I'm glad to hear that we're finally starting to work on the potholes. Where Swede Lane and Summit come together is impossible to go across right now. My truck is taking a beating from it. I drive through town now just to avoid it, and not that that's always that much better, but I thought it was just Summit Street that was a problem until the rummage sales, and I drove the entire city, and I went down every street just to see what it was like, and that's not the case. There's several roads that need attention. I reviewed the budget from 2012 that was listed. It seems to be about $95,000 listed in the local and the major street funding. Takes about $18,000, and this is a couple years old, so it's probably more now, to do a rather short section of road. And so I do understand there's budget concerns, there's issues. We have, especially with the winter we had and the amount the city put out for the water line issues. I know it's a problem, and it's not something that you can fix immediately. What I would like to request is a plan be put together that's posted and given to the public to see what the plan is for fixing the roads over time. I understand it can take quite some time, especially with the funding issues we have, but seeing something from starting this year, 2014, say out to 2020. My wife and I have lived on Crescent Street for 7 years. The road is awful. It's gotten worse every year. We've gotten patches and other patches, and now the patches are worse than some of the potholes. I'd like to know when it's going to get fixed, because we're trying to decide whether we want to stay living there or not. We'd like to stay in Norway. We love the city, but this is starting to make it a hard decision. And we'll likely try to sell our house just to get away from that road. And then hopefully there'll be a house in the town that'll let us stay within the city limits, but it may not be. So that's the statement I have. I don't know what the plan is. I believe there is some. I heard some talk tonight already about trying to coordinate some of the road work with the piping that's got to be done. That's good to hear that there's some thought in that process to try to reduce the costs. But I think overall, the budget needs to be reviewed, maybe not this year, maybe it's next year, for what you appropriate for roads and how we're gonna get from where we are today, where several people complain about the condition of their roads, to where at least we're able to a spot where we're maintaining just several of the roads.
We actually have a multi-year plan, I don't remember how far it goes out, that had road repair, I think it was a 5-year plan for sections of road repair being done each year. I don't know where we have that map now.
Well, yeah, the problem is that when we rate the roads based off of a 1 through 10 rating, it's called a PASER rating.
Yep. I read the report.
Okay,
Yep.
so you're familiar with the ratings?
Yep.
60% of our roads are between 1 and 3.
Yep.
So they need a reconstruction, really. We started a process with our water and sewer in 2006, and we're still not, putting that in place in a road. So the roads that we were able to handle over the last 5, 6, 7 years have all had some component, with a program, with a grant, some way of leveraging utility fund and these grant funds. Now, as I mentioned, we're spending about 107% of our road fund just to plow, maintain, and do what we're doing now. So, the money needs to come out of the general fund. And, our fund balance within the major and local is down below $5,000 this year. So we have to try and figure out, where we could put the monies to actually do what would be most reasonable in a situation with probably a crush and shape type job. When you have 60%, 50% of the roads that could actually be classified the same as yours, now you have to look at how do you prioritize that group. It's not just taking a 1 to 3, that's maybe 20%. It's that whole group. So, I could say, we're gonna do Crescent Street, but then you have 3, 4, 5, 10 other streets, and they say, well, why are you doing this one and not that one?
And I understand that, and I understand that Crescent may not be the next on the priority list, or Summit, but it doesn't seem like there is a priority list right now. And
Then that I can say there is, because we have, somewhere there's a map. It was a 5-year plan out that we did so much each year, so many blocks of crush and shape each year. Crescent wasn't down there, Summit might have been.
No, it's all on, every street is rated, okay?
Not on the map, not on the plan. For what we were gonna do, we have a 5-year map that showed we were doing this much this year, this much last year, this much next year.
so how are we tracking
It's
that
over 4
plan
years
then?
old.
I agree with
tell
you,
you that,
Jeremy,
it's
but we never did the one street.
What we actually, last year we used it when we picked what we did. Last year we did that map, because we did it last year for deciding what we were gonna do with the money we took from electric. And then
Yeah,
here's
it was a legal paper that had
Yeah,
last year's project. We had some for this year. We had the water project for 15,
Right.
and then we had 16 and
Yeah,
17.
I remember seeing the map, it was all prioritized, like
Yeah.
1 through 5, whatever it was. And I remember that because 16th Avenue was the last one, the one that kind of goes by my house.
Is this the map you're talking about?
No.
This is from 2000.
that's the Pazer map. I'm talking the one we had last year when we did the road project. We had a separate map with full images. This is for 13. This is what we're doing at 14. This is what we're doing at 15. It was a small map, legal size paper. It wasn't the Pazer map.
Take a look.
And if there's a plan, that's great.
And there is.
So can we get that posted so we know?
We can get it, we had it out in the lobby for a while. We can try to get it back out there. Just once we find it again.
So we can get it posted online too.
That's what I was
Online,
hoping, because a lot of people do look at that, I know, yeah.
Now, and you remember, the plan that we had in place was based on some of our budgeting going through those years, and sometimes those needs change like they did for this budget season. So even though we'd like to do, it's more about we'd like to do these streets over the
Yeah.
next these years. It may not exactly happen that way,
So do you track that plan year over year, however,
Last year was the first year we put it in place.
but you had another plan previous to that?
That's the Pazer road map. That's not a plan. That's just the map saying, these are the conditions of each road.
And I do get budget issues, I understand that, and how things change. You were mentioning The fact that, you know, we do got these plans over this time. I talked to people, I work for a company in Iron Mountain. We're expanding, we're planning on hiring close to 25 people over the next few years. And, you know, that may not seem like a lot, but for a small company it is. And I try to push people towards Norway because of the way the city is, but I've had several comments from the past year. We've had 10 people start. They've all looked at it, and only one of the 10 have even considered Norway because the road condition. The houses that were available were not in good shape for the roads, and that's a concern. I think you guys are considering this stuff, which is good, and you gotta look at how you're gonna market the city as well, and one of the things, as George mentioned earlier, curb appeal is a big part, and if your roads suck, so does your curb appeal. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to add to that, that last year I tried to get the council to use some of our, PCAC funds, which was listed as an increase in our utility rates, but actually it was a decrease in our discount. Norway has some of the cheapest electrical rates in the Upper Peninsula, and we were discounting that even further when our waters were high, and I thought we should have been using that money last year to pave the roads. This year, at least reduced the amount that we refund by from 2.5 cents per kilowatt hour to 1 cent per kilowatt hour. That has not been designated for a road repair. I thought it should have been last year, but
That's kind of when we took the money from electric last year, so.
right.
Was it like 240,000 last year, I believe we transferred for the streets?
It was more than
It was
that.
more than that.
280.
280.
280?
280.
Yeah, that was.
And this year, we would have liked to have done the same thing, but we've had an incident down where it's gonna cost us $300,000 to fix the Tanner gates on the hydro. And if that wouldn't have happened, I'm sure we would have had a good chunk again to go more into the streets.
Correct. That was the intent. Does anyone else wish to address the council?
Darrell Harder, 600 15th Avenue. I'm just wondering what I know it's gonna come up a lot more, but the blight ordinance on grass. What is the length of the grass supposed to be before they get told they gotta cut it?
9 inches.
9 inches? Well, there's one on the hill that's 16 in the front and 24 on the side. 'Cause I checked it just before I come down. And last year, that same resident mowed their lawn twice because they were forced to mow it. They don't bother mowing the lawn, and it makes everybody else's yard look like maybe you don't want to live in Norway.
I agree with you 100%, Darrell. There's a lot of places out there right now. And one thing that I was just talking to a couple of people this morning about, I just don't understand it. There are a lot of homes for sale in Norway, which I'm not knocking. You've got the sign out there in the boulevard by such and such a realty, and the grass is this high. What's wrong with these realtors that they don't keep the grass cut on a place they're trying to sell?
No.
I mean, you drive by and you look, oh, look at the long grass there. I ain't even gonna look, you just keep right on going by. And I don't know why we don't get on these people more to do it.
Yeah. Well, this one is a resident that's living there.
Well, there's more than one
Give
out
the
there.
address to,
Pardon?
just give the address to the office, and we'll get it out.
All right.
Ray, I think that we should address that problem with Jim. To get them notices, we should redo that whole ordinance. Because the way that ordinance sits now on that blight is not working.
We redid the grass one last year to speed it up quite a bit.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Are we enforcing it?
Absolutely.
Yes, 8 letters went out today. This morning, 8 letters went out
They should be out
for
a lot
grass.
earlier, Joe.
And what's that?
They should have been out a lot earlier.
Yeah, well, I know they went out
I
today.
mean, just like Darrell said, by the time we send an ordinance out, by the time the allowance, I don't know what your guidelines are now.
It's less than a
But
week.
the way they were up until last year, if you change it, you were forced to cut the grass maybe twice, maybe 3 times. I mean, it wasn't even worth the trouble of the stamps and the envelopes that you're sending them out
It's
for.
what, a week now? I don't remember.
It's less than a week.
Yeah, it's no, we have less than a week now.
Okay. I didn't
Yeah.
know it was changed, but I'd like to see it really.
Okay.
I agree
Anyone?
with you, though, Dale. It's a shame. You got them right in town, like the same thing.
Okay, anyone else wish to address the council? Bruce, do you have anything for us on the water sewer?
Not much of a question.
Okay, Lee. Doc?
The only thing I wanted to bring up tonight would, I'd like to see us develop a list of vacant lands that the city presently owns in the township that are border the city property. I think if they're vacant lands, we'd like to have our police force at least be able to keep an eye on our property. And if they are adjacent to the city, I'd like to see them annexed into the city. We don't pay any taxes to the township anyway, so they might as well be part of the city. For instance, the shooting range with a,
We've talked about that one before, annexing
Right.
that one.
so I just want to bring it up. I'd like to see if there's any other lands that are like that and see about having those annexed into the city.
Okay. Anything else? Chris? George? I got nothing. Joe?
I have nothing.
Mary? Tricia? Jay?
No, sir, thank you.
Ray?
Nope, I got it.
Okay, with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
Motion made by Chris, supported by George. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Ball?
Yep.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Shorter than I thought. I thought